Hey guys, it's Martin from Voyager Project here with Quest for Tone Revisited, where what we're going to do is we're going to look back at a couple of episodes, in this case episode 2 and episode 5, and just kind of expand slightly on them in terms of the things we covered in those. So going way back to episode 2, we looked at the pick, the plectrum. And I discussed about different thicknesses and different materials and stuff like that. But what we didn't do is actually listen to any of the different picks and the noises they make. Now I'm not going to go through the enormous tray of picks I had that time, but what I will do is just look at 3. They're all V picks, which are the picks that I use all the time now. They're all small pointed, but I've got 3 different thicknesses. I've got the light, I've got the ultralight, and I've got the standard. So they're all made out of this transparent acrylic material. The main difference you'll find with different thicknesses of picks is just the tone that it gives you. I'm on a clean tone, purely because I think the tone is more easily represented when you've got clean, but I'll run through them with overdrive as well, just so you can hear what's going on. So first, looking at the ULP, which is a very thin, slightly flexible pick, and what I find with this one is it's a very sort of cutting. It almost makes a humbucker sound like a single coil. So it doesn't have the meat maybe, but it has lots of top end. So. Okay, I use quite a bright amp setting anyway, and so for general playing I find the ULP, the very thin one, just to be a little bit too sort of sharp, a little bit too cutting. But it's great if I want real definition when I'm playing lead lines. On the last Voyager Project album, We're Not Alone, there was a track called The Elder Sun, where I had to play just a little repeating pattern just in the middle of the verse, which was relatively simple. It was just. But I found choosing this pick really just helped me get that definition. It was like 2 bars every verse, so it wasn't something I would immediately change pick for live or anything. But it was having that kind of thin cutting pick, and just the way it feels as well made the difference in that particular case. Going to the other extreme, the standard small pointed V pick. This one's a little bad, it's starting to scuff a little bit, but what we've got is very much the opposite. It's very mellow, it doesn't quite have the same cut, so I mean that's on bridge humbucker, and this is a bright guitar through bright amps. And it just has a lot more body, a lot sort of more mellow. It is quite a thick pick, so it feels noticeable in your hand, and it's a little bit more than maybe I would choose, particularly if I'm playing lots of chordal parts. It's great for the mellow stuff, but it doesn't always give me the the snap. I mean, if I switch to neck pickup. Maybe if I was playing something more jazzy, then I would choose a thick pick like this. Or it's great with overdrive, which I'll show you in a minute, for kind of really sort of heavy stuff, because it's just got no give in it at all, so any energy you put into the strings are conveyed straight through. So I'd tried both of those for a while and never felt 100% satisfied with either of them. And then I thought, well, I'll go for the one in between, which is the V-Pick Light Small, which I guess is, I think it's about 1.5 mm thickness. And it really is a compromise in terms of, but not compromise as in making things worse, but it's kind of the best of both worlds. So it's got very little give, but just a tiny little bit, so it gets a little bit of snap to it. And it's also got plenty of body. You don't lose the low end like you do with the really thin pick. So even when I'm playing leads on the bridge pickup, it's got bite and body, and it also, for me at least, the way my fingers are, it kind of balances well with when I'm doing hybrid picking. So that's why this has really become my go-to pick. I mentioned this is with clean sounds. I'll stick some overdrive on, I'll turn the OCD on, and you'll hear the difference. It's a much more subtle difference between the three sounds on an overdrive sound. So first the ULP. And then the light. And finally the standard, the heavy one. So, what do we learn from this in our step on the quest for tone? If you're using distortion all the time, not going to make a huge amount of difference. Get what feels good, get what responds to the strings well. The tone isn't going to be affected too much by the picks. I love the V-picks because they have a good bit of attack. They have a kind of slight chirpy sound when you hit the strings, but at the same time, they're not really metallic sounding or anything like that. And the shape is good. They've got 3 points and they've got slightly rounded edges, so you can, if you want to go really mellow, drop back, play with the side of the pick rather than the point, and you've got 3 of those as well, and that gives a completely different tone. Playing with overdrive all the time, less important. Playing with clean a lot of the time, as I seem to end up doing, or just slightly breaking up, then definitely think about the thickness of your pick as well as the material and the shape of it. Okay guys, so now let's move on to a completely different topic, which is to do with mic positioning. Now in episode 5 we looked at microphone positioning and types of microphones, and we were kind of looking at the studio mics. I had my cabs in the ISO boxes, and we had a condenser mic on there which I would never ever use live. Had a ribbon mic on there which I would probably never use live, because they're both quite fragile, very sensitive, not particularly resistant to feedback. And I had the Audix i5s which I use live as well. So in this little addendum to it, just using the i5s, and if you remember from that demo, the way I have it is I have one speaker that's pretty much lined up with where the dust cap in the middle of the cone meets the cone. If you shine a torch through the speaker grill, you should just about be able to see where that is, and that's a good starting point. But I do find, particularly if I'm recording a live gig, that gives me a very thin sound, and I often need to kind of up the bass a bit. So then what I started doing was adding another i5 that's about 1.5 inches further out. So I guess that's about halfway between the dust cap and the edge of the cone, something like that. And really that distance was determined purely by the width of the plates of the amp clamps that I use for mounting my microphones to my speaker cabs. But I tried it, it immediately sounded good. So what I like to do is blend the two together. So what I'm going to do in this demo is, unlike when I was doing the studio demo in episode 5, I've got them going to separate channels now on the desk rather than just merged through the palm merge boxes. So this, first of all, with a clean sound, is it is the centre mics, the bright sounding mics on their own. And on a clean sound, just the outer mics, just the more mellow mics. And then what I like to do, which is blend the two together. Now hopefully, although I won't know until I've listened to the recording, that will show you that the centre mics are much brighter, lacking a little bit low end but with plenty of bite, and then the outer mics are a little bit sort of muted, a little bit mellow, but they've got lots of body to it, so the blending of the two together really helps give me a full sound. I'm very much into full sounds, that's the tone that I go for. I don't like mid-scooped sounds. I like plenty of mid-range, but also plenty of bass, plenty of treble. In particular, if I'm playing in a three-piece situation, which I do quite a lot, or I'm just playing with an acoustic guitar and maybe a bass and the drums. Having a healthy amount of mid-range really helps to provide punch to guitar tones. Okay, so let's move on to overdrive. So this is the OCD. And again, centre mics. Outer mics. And both mics blended together. So again, we're getting brightness, we're getting body, and then we're getting body with bite, if you will, like a big shark. And I find that really gives me a really sort of good combination of sounds. It does require 2 mics on a tab, which may be a pain for some people, but as I say, if you get one of the little, I think I've got one here, but get one of these boxes, which is a Palm Sigma Pano 5 microphone merger, or any other merge box. I think ART make one and a couple of other companies. If you're using dynamic mics, SM57s or i5s or whatever, you can plug a couple of them in. They get merged at the same volume as each other, so it's important to use 2 of the same or very similar mics, and you get a single XLR out, which can then go to your desk. great for live and for recording. Okay, so I hope that's been a sort of useful step into, or a step back, but also expanding what we've covered in episodes 2 and 5. Episode 6 will follow very shortly, where we're going to be looking at gain staging. But until then, take care and I'll see you soon.